Hello, I'm Paul Laney, the retired sheriff from Cass County, North Dakota, and the current vice president of national sales for Turnkey Corrections.
And I'm Lauren Matthews, and I'm the current social media and content specialist for Turnkey.
And you are listening to Jail Talk, and if you like what you're seeing and you like what we're doing, give us a like and subscribe below. Well, we're on the road again.
That's right.
These last few weeks, I keep feeling we should be playing a little Willie Nelson on the road again, leading into it, because it's kind of the story of our life.
Yeah.
I think we're in Phoenix this week. Is that where we're at?
I'll have to check a map.
I think so. No, we definitely know where we're at this week. We are at the National Sheriff's Association's annual summer conference. So good to be back again with the nation's sheriffs. NSA has always been near and dear to my heart. As you know, we have a lot of connections and ties. We've had the executive director for NSA on the show. We've had our former national president, and it's weird to say former because we're talking about that a bit. His tenure ends today, Dave Mahoney from Dane County. But guess who we have with us? I'm excited,
Me too.
Very excited about this man sitting between Lauren and I. Is the new Dane County Sheriff of Dane County, Wisconsin, Sheriff Kalvin Barrett. Welcome to the show, Sheriff.
Hey, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
You've had a little bit of a crazy couple months.
Yeah, just a little bit.
You know, as we all know, Sheriff Mahoney announced his retirement,
Yes.
was leaving office, going off and doing some things after 40 plus years in the business. I guess he gets to kind of decide what he wants to go do.
Absolutely.
And I know he is a huge supporter of you, and he's really excited about you taking over the helm of the sheriff's office. And what made you, decide? Well, actually, I tell you what, we should probably let him tell him. I'm just excited to talk.
You're skipping ahead a little bit.
My parental supervision's reining me in again.
That's right.
So yes.
Normally, this is the part of the show where we would read the bios, but since we're on the road, like Paul said, if you could just share a little bit about your history and how you got to where you are now, just so our listeners kind of get to know you a little bit.
That sounds good. Well, it's been a journey. It's been a great one. I am originally from San Diego, California. That's where I grew up. I came to Wisconsin on a full athletic scholarship to swim and high dive, 400 medley. I'm totally kidding. I was not.
I thought he was a football player.
Yeah.
You're so streamlined for swimming.
Sorry, I had to throw that in there. Please don't cut that.
That's pretty good.
I was blessed and received a full athletic scholarship to play football at Wisconsin, and that's what brought me here in 2000. I graduated with a degree in sociology and moved to Texas for a few years where I was a middle school teacher.
Okay.
And came back in 2009 where Dave Mahoney actually hired me as in my first law enforcement position at the sheriff's office. And I went to the Sun Prairie Police Department where I was, again, blessed to be the first African-American police officer ever hired at their police agency.
Okay.
And I was there for 5 years, and for the past 4.5 years, I've been on the academic side of the criminal justice system, and that's teaching at Madison College in our criminal justice studies program and training officers in our law enforcement academy.
So you got a little well-rounded experience there, and going in. I mean, you're running one of the most recognized sheriff's offices in the country. Very progressive. Has always been very well known for getting things done and being at the tip of the spear. What made you decide to want to do that?
Yeah.
I was going to ask you that earlier, and I'm excited to hear this. Having decided and made that decision to run for sheriff when I did, I know the thought process that goes into that, and I know that commitment. And you've kind of done a bunch of different things in your life. And what made you say, and then you got appointed by the governor of the state. That's no small feat when there's a lot of talent out there, and he said, "You're my guy."
Right.
What made you decide to pursue that and come back to this?
Yeah, and if you knew at this moment, actually, I would be on my summer vacation from the college, so I would be I'd be off till the middle of August. But
you go swim training, right?
Yeah, swim, of course. Right? So it was just the opportunity, really, to wake up every morning and put on a badge and inspire a profession, inspire a sheriff's office, and inspire a profession to leave this time right now that we have better than when we came into it.
Right.
And understanding that this is an infinite game and not a finite game, and understanding that there's not an end goal to this, but we are ultimately here to leave this profession and the society world better than how we came in, and adding our little bits of professionalism and our bits of experience to it was the opportunity for me to find common ground between two worlds that I'm living in. And in some respects they're in conflict, and that's being a person of color and being in law enforcement.
Right.
And I feel there's that common ground that I could achieve and bring us together so we can communicate and understand and learn from each other and not have this divide. And so I saw the opportunity. I prayed on it. I spoke with my family. They were my first constituents. They gave me the blessing, and so I decided to put in to be appointed.
You know, and we understand how important that is. And I know a little bit down the road here, Lauren's going to talk to you about that family end of it, because that's so important. As you made the decision and you visited with the governor and you visited with others, what's that process? So for our listeners out there that are looking at an appointment process, because you've got two steps. You've got where you're at right now. You're the sheriff of Dane County, and then you got to dive headfirst into a campaign. Well, you're in a campaign. You're headfirst into that. I've been following you on social media and following your campaign, and you are in the game, and you're going hard. What's that process like, and how does that happen for our listeners? Tell them about the appointment process.
Yeah, so it was a very rigorous process, and it was difficult and tough because there was so much talent that was out there. Again, like you mentioned, the Dane County Sheriff's Office is one of the finest in the Midwest, and so there were so many people that were talented and that were out there, but the process was, I think, really tailored towards understanding and seeing the future of where they thought law enforcement was going to go into the eyes or through the eyes of the governor. And so there was a very stringent interview process that had sheriffs, police chiefs, attorneys from all over the state, and they really asked some really deep and hard questions outside of why do you want to be a police officer type thing. So I think it really dug deep into your passion and your inspiration of what you wanted to do, where you're at, and what you can bring to the table. And I thought it was just a fantastic process. It was a series of interviews that took place that were very tough. But I felt just speaking from my heart and speaking from my experiences was the only thing that I can do, and that was my best course of action, and it worked out well.
Outstanding. So what's it like to get that phone call?
It was amazing. It was a little scary because it's something new, you know what I mean? You know how we all love being in that little comfort zone. And that's where I was at Madison College. I had my lesson plan set up, I had my videos, I had my PowerPoints, and so everything was nice and neat and comfortable, and and now I'm outside of that. But I think outside of that comfort zone is where we grow the most. And I feel this is the time that I leave that stamp on our profession and on our agency to really move us forward.
You talk about the change you want to affect, and it's going to be really, really, I think, interesting for all of us to watch you and follow you, because it is obviously really trying times right now, and you do get to bring that perspective from all fronts that you get to bring in. And the one thing I think that's so interesting about the Office of Sheriff, and we talked about a lot, is how strongly we can affect change as sheriffs, because while taking nothing away from police chiefs and taking nothing away from those other positions, because they are all very dedicated professionals, but they answer to a board, they answer to a commission. We work with the board, we work with the commission, but our agenda is ours. And we have so much more leeway to effect that change, to demand that change, to expect that change. How does that fit into what you're looking at doing that? Because you're in the perfect position to do that.
Right, and then that's the beauty of this position. I know I was considering police chief positions as well, but really looking at the ability, like you explained, to have that effect and work with the board and work with the constituents is really where I thought I could implement the most amount of change and really bring together a combination of my personal experiences, professional experiences, and my training experiences. And that's the beauty of diversity. That's the beauty of coming from different realms of the world, because how I see things may be different from you, may be different from someone else, may be different from a female, may be different from someone from a different culture. So I think it's just a beautiful opportunity for me to be in a position to implement change and continue the great work that Sheriff Dave Mahoney has been doing at the Sheriff's Office.
I think I always say, in law enforcement, that cops hate two things. They hate change. They hate the way things are, and every time I was trying to implement that, I'd always come back to that saying, right in the middle of dealing with that. But, I think as we look at society, and as we look at where we all need to be to start bringing peace back into our society, I think, Sheriff, you have that perfect situation, and it's going to be very, very interesting to watch you and how you do that and how you affect that change. And I think you're going to be a role model for many law enforcement leaders out there, because you have that unique perspective. You understand where the frustrations are coming from, yet you also understand the nobleness and the honor of the Office of Sheriff and those cops that are out there every day laying it on the line for their people, and they don't want to go out and hurt people, and they don't want to go do this. They want to just make their community safer, and you have that perspective, and it's going to be neat to see how that goes for you in the next couple months.
Absolutely.
Well, we all know that being in law enforcement affects more than just that person. It affects their families too. So how has it been for your family with you getting back into law enforcement, especially during such a trying time for law enforcement?
Right, and that's a great question. Before I even considered getting into this position, I had to sell it to my family. And that was the most important thing for me to do. And they were the first ones that were on board. And as long as my wife and my children were on board and understanding where we were at as a profession, where we were at in society, and they said that they were ready, we were always prepared. In that I was a police officer in the city where I lived for 5 years. So we had all of the security cameras and things set up. We had the plan set in place. We had the neighbors set in place for if anything were to happen. So it was a smooth transition, but it's important to inspect them or to let them know how things can go in good times, but in bad times too, because it's great when now when you're new, it's always great, you got that honeymoon time, it's exciting. Absolutely. But when things get tough and you have to make good decisions and you have to make tough decisions based off of factual evidence that may not be what the community necessarily agrees with, that's when we're really going to see those trying times. But over the past year and a half with COVID, spending so much extra time with our family, it just really brought perspective to me to see how important my family is to me. And so it was just a great transition for us to grow together as a family over the last year and a half due to COVID, and then moving right into this new transition in my career. So.
Well, it is exciting because we know our families are our backbone, and when we walk out that door, to have that support and to know that they're behind you is everything. I felt the same way. Because their lives change too.
Absolutely.
It's not like you go off and you go out, I'm Sheriff Barrett and nothing else is going on in my life. They live everything you have to do. When you come home, when you're in the middle of the media controversies and all that, their friends at school, their co-workers, for your spouse, they might get an earful about a decision you made. And so it is great, and it's neat to see you have that support. And because I think, as we all know, the foundation of that is critical. And so, we know you're a busy man. In fact, you have deputies that are going to be presenting here at NSA here very shortly, and I know we were so excited to visit with you yesterday and know you could come on the show, and so we don't want to take up too much of your time, but you have a platform here, and with JailTalk, we want to get out the message of the sheriffs and the jail administrators of the nation, and we want to make the lives better for our law enforcement officers. And just what would be, we're here with the nation sheriffs. We're here with staff members from all over the country from our great profession. What is your message to them? What is your message to our listeners back home? And what's your message to America about what's coming from Sheriff Barrett, but what's important and what we need to do?
Right. Well, number one, thank you so much for this opportunity to be here and speak and for this fantastic platform. I've been a fan of you guys for a very long time, and so this is just an honor. But I think when I played college football for Barry Alvarez, Brett Bielema, who's now the Illinois head football coach, brought this mindset of 1-0. And a lot of times people on the outside are like, well, you only won one game? It's like, no. The mindset of 1-0, meaning you take one play, one practice, one incident, one opportunity at a time to improve. That's your ultimate goal. And in playing that infinite game, those 1-0s add up. And I'm taking that same approach here to our law or to our profession. And that I would love for everyone out there to know that this is not a sprint. This is a marathon, and it takes one conversation at a time, one handshake at a time, one town hall meeting at a time, one crisis at a time for us really to get to where we want to go. So take off those sprint shoes, put on those marathon shoes, and get those bags of water, and let's run together. And when I get tired and start cramping up and ready to pass off that torch, just like Dave Mahoney has, I'm going to pass it off to the next young sheriff that's going to be full of new ideas and innovative approaches to our criminal justice system, and I'm going to pass it off the same way it's been passed off to me, and that infinite game will go on forever. So.
Sheriff, it's going to be really not just fun, but it's going to be a real privilege to watch what you're doing. It's when you're around you pick up on your enthusiasm and you pick up on your excitement, and it's just even sitting here with you and getting to visit you last night, you can see you want to go out and make a difference, and it's I think you're going to, and I think you're going to be one of those that becomes a role model within the sheriff's world, and one we all look at with respect. So thank you for your time today, and I know you have places you got to go and things you got to do, and And we really appreciate you being here.
Hey, thank you so much for everything. It's been a pleasure. Continue to do the great things that you guys are doing.
Thank you so much.
And it's been an honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for listening. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, or email us at jailtalkpodcast@gmail.com.
You're so good at saying that. It just flows.
That's right.
Thank you all for joining us today. I'm Paul Laney.
And I'm Lauren Matthews.
You've been listening to Jail Talk, and we'll see you next time.